All right, Lotus family, here we go. Warrior 1, Warrior 2, Warrior 3. You might hear them all the time in class. Vera 1, Vera 2, Vera 3. We're going to go over them today. Step by step, all the variations in between, the alignment that you kind of want and something to steer away from. The alignment cues that might start injuring you if you're not aware of what you can and can't do with your body. I'm Neil Craver here. We got about 30 minutes. Let's get started. A gentle warm up here. So we're going to begin in child's pose. So before we even lay our chest on the ground, let's be aware of this child's pose being different than any other child's pose that we've ever taken before. So let's get a little spinal undulation before we rest down. Just moving the spine left and right. This is going to be really beneficial if you've been sitting in a chair all day long, moving from, this diagonal kind of position to working the sides. All right, crawl the hands forward. Rest the forehead on the ground just a second. Begin taking deep breaths here through the nose only, and become active with the hands, pushing the hands into the earth, and then pulling the glutes down into the earth. So the glutes should make contact with the heels, or maybe even further if you want to go in between the heels. It's all good. Deep breath. Push into the hands and knees for cat-cow. Now some of the demands for Warrior 1, Warrior 2 is knowing where our hips are in space. So if the hips are jutting out, they're extending, or if they're flexed, they're pulling forward. So some people, there's many analogies for this. It's boy butt, girl butt. We'll go over a few when we get there. But just notice what range of motion you have here, so you can, the ability to extend the pelvis outwards and then tuck the pelvis under. So when we inhale, we drop the stomach, extend the pelvis, look up with the gaze, and then round the spine like a cat, like a scared cat. Tucking the tailbone under, scooping underneath, hollowing the stomach upwards. Let's do a few more of these. Notice what kind of range you have here, what your abilities are today. You might find that you're kind of stuck in this one position or the other. We want to be able to loosen the spine enough so we can move the pelvis at will. There's not really any wrong way, but any wrong position of the pelvis, but there's patterns that we've kind of developed through our work day and through our life that kind of can get stuck. All right, press into the hands. Press up onto the feet for Malasana. Yogi squat. And even here, we want to take a little bit of side-to-side movement. Notice what kind of tension might be in the ankles. Make sure that we have a longer spine if possible, so we're not hunched over. If you had blocks or something here, you can lift the lift the spine upwards a little bit, but just a gentle rock back and forth. We really want to notice the blade edge of the foot, and then notice when the foot rolls forward and collapses on itself. So become aware of the feet here. Feel the blade edge as we roll onto it. Then feel the arch, the inside, the arch side. All right, let's warm the wrists up a minute. Always good to warm the wrists up. You might have been typing all day long. I mean, there's so many issues with the wrists that there's no reason not to spend at least a minute every time you get down on your mat to warm the wrists up. It's the most injured area, I believe. It's the most injured area, I believe. So place the hands, the back side of the hands down, and just move through some shapes here. Whatever's kind of calling out to you, just the backs of the hands are on the ground. And the hands aren't very far from the knees, so we're not stretched out, putting a lot of weight on the wrist. We're really warming them up slow, so most of the weight is in the hips and in the knees, and we're just very controlled here. Just getting a little flexibility, a little circulation in the wrist. Now flip the hands over so the palms are facing on the ground. And same thing. Very active through every single finger. Just rotate in any position, any direction that's calling to you. Everybody's going to have a different tension in all the different areas of the body. And only you are going to know what your body needs. All right, press into the hands, downward facing dog. So our starting position here, hands rooted into the earth. The knees straight or bent. Doesn't matter if the heels aren't on the ground. Just have full engagement throughout the body. So we root it down through the hands. We're pushing the ground away with the arms, the shoulders. The navel's pulling in. We're sending energy from the hands all the way through the backside of the body, ultimately into the feet. And just pedal left, pedal right. So you should feel this into the hips, stretching the sides of the bodies, the obliques. Twist so much that you look underneath one shoulder. Now slowly take about 10 steps to get to the front of your mat. Start pushing a little weight into the wrists, into the hands. Once you reach the top of the mat, forward fold ragdoll. So you can have a generous bend or straightening the legs. You just want a looseness through the torso, shoulders, neck. And just like a ragdoll, we're just kind of being thrown around. Just sling your arms left and right. Your head is very, very loose. Makes me think about my dog Dudley when he gets his stuffed animal and just kind of shakes it. Shakes it like a rag doll. So you want this complete looseness to the body, this melted feeling. Slowly start to rise up. Slow, slow, slow. Lift the head up last. Samasthiti. Palms by the hips, facing forward. Head up last. All right. So we're going to start with Warrior 1, Vira A or Virabhadrasana 1. Slowly lifting forward. So we're going to start with Warrior 1, Vira 1 or Virabhadrasana 1. I want to first talk about this concept of being on railroad tracks. So if we look down at the feet are on two different planes here. If there was a railroad track here, we would be standing on them. The other position would be tightrope. So if one foot was on a rope and the other foot was right on the same rope, so the heel's on a rope and the back heel's on a rope. See this here? Opposed to the train tracks. There's a space, there's a hip width of space. We're going to use that as a good cue throughout our practice. All right, let's begin. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, plant the hands. Step back with the right foot. And as we step back, put the heel on the ground for Warrior 1. We want to have the back foot angled, almost like the toe is pointing at, 3 o'clock-ish. The front foot is pointing at 12 o'clock, the front of your mat. And there's a 1,000 different levels of this Warrior 1 within starting from the roots. So this angle right here, the steeper you get this angle, the less pressure is going to be on the legs, and it's going to feel a little bit easier. So if you have to step that foot forward, so this angle kind of gets a little steeper. If you wanted to, same foot position, you're on a tightrope, same foot position, but it just feels a little bit easier. There's the more standard kind of setup. But if you want a little bit more pressure, we're going to walk that foot back. And even more. And at some point, you can just start wiggling that foot back. You could also wiggle the front foot forward. If you wanted to get this foot, a little bit more fire in your practice, you're going to make the quad lower just a little bit. And the closer the quad comes to parallel to the ground, the fire just amps up. So there's from the roots of Warrior 1. Now we're going to lift up with the chest. We're going to rotate forward with the chest. The left hip is going to start spiraling a little bit forward. And we're going to lift the arms. The hands can be apart or together. Lift the gaze. So you want to have some spark in the fingers. We don't want the fingers just to be lifted up and limp. We want to get some power going from the feet, kind of surging up through the body and up through the fingers. Ultimately, we can lift the gaze past the fingers, but if that's too much, we just look straight forward or look down at the ground. So the hips are trying to spiral forward. They're not going to get parallel to the front of the mat. But that's where we're kind of wanting to point them. Now, if we want to lessen a little bit of heat off this, we're going to walk this back foot forward. It feels a lot better. Now I can get into my arms a little bit better. Lift the arms. Two more breaths. Step forward with that right foot. Extended mountain, arms overhead. Step back with that left foot. Warrior one. Again, where do we want this foot is kind of where you want the gas pedal. You want it full throttle, or you just want it, I just want a little bit of heat today. Be all right with fluctuating sides as well. You might have a really dominant side and a really weak side. It doesn't have to necessarily be in balance at this point. So this feels good to me. I have engagement through the quad. The back foot is completely on the ground, and I'm trying to lift the arch. So I'm on the blade edge of that back foot. I'm pushing down with the foot to straighten the leg. Turn on the glutes and start tilting the hips, swiveling the hips forward. The knee is in line with the front foot, and both of those are pointing at 12 o'clock. Now we got that going. Make sure the butt isn't extending outwards, so you'll feel this little bit of pressure in the back. Tuck the tailbone under, squeeze the abs, and that's going to give us a longer spine and a little bit more space. Once we get that, start growing your full expression of Warrior One, Vera One. Arms up, 2 breaths. Step forward. Samasthita heat. Reset. Hands by the hips. All right. Warrior One, we got it. We're going to go through Warrior Two. Vera Two. All right. Extended mountain, arms overhead. We're going to step back with that right foot again. Slowly start bending into that front leg. Warrior Two. Same setup with the legs. I have my angle here. It feels pretty good. I'm not gripping with the toes. So lift the toes up. Find the corners of the feet. So we have this very rooted feeling. The back edge, the blade edge right here, is pushing into the ground so the leg can extend. The headlights of the hips are pointing a little bit forward. Make sure the knee isn't tracking too far forward over the foot. Traditionally, that's a no-no, but for our alignment here, the knee is right over the ankle. Once we got that, Warrior Two with the arms. The arms are going to be parallel to the earth. And then instead of the hips in more of a Warrior Two shape, the hips start opening a little bit, so you have a flatter plane right here. Once the hips open, we have this extension through the arms. And the arms just aren't like, they're not limp kind of noodles here. They're like uncooked pasta. They're on. They're straight as possible. They're warrior arms, so they should be like swords. Squeeze the fingers together so they're like blades. Look down the front middle finger. Turn around and look down that back finger. Make sure it's exactly where you think it is, because sometimes you think the arm's up and you look back and you're like, gee, come on, arm. Snap in there. All right. Warrior gaze. So the fortitude of the drishti here is just, you're just in it. So you're firing up the legs. All right, step forward, Samasthita He. Palms facing forward, shoulders down. Reset. Step back, left foot. Now, if we step back and we're kind of jumping around here, it's totally fine to reset, to figure out where you want to be. Just don't get too fidgety with it. You know, it's just like, sometimes you just got to step it back and that's where you're at. Other times, you want to go and refine and kind of engage. That's totally fine. It's all good. So we feel this pressure in the foot, and that back foot is still pointing at an angle, maybe pointing at, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever space you have there. The heel's on the ground. So if your foot shouldn't be up, the heel's on the ground, spiraling up through the leg. Start to open the hips just a little bit. Arms are parallel. You feel it when you got it. I mean, when you get it, you're like, pow! Feels good. Extend the arms. Now, the last cue here is make sure that your head is over your heart and your heart is over your pelvis. So you don't want to be back like this, or you don't want to be back like this. We want to be very balanced right over the center of the body. Samasthiti. Step forward. Hands facing forward. Shoulders down. And gaze down the tip of the nose. Very soft with the gaze. Step back with that right foot. I want to take you through a little bit of a transition here. We're going to go from Warrior 1, Warrior 2, and then we're going to finish in Warrior 3. So if you're not exactly where you want to be, move the feet, Warrior 1. Might want to scoot this foot back, just wherever you want to get it here. If you're totally new to Warrior 1, Warrior 2, just feel what's happening with the hips. You should be able to lock them in. So you have this squeezing sensation of the hips pulling together. My leg feels good. It's turned on. I can grab the leg. Make sure it's not floppy. Warrior 1, inhale. Spin the hips a little bit forward so the headlight of the hips are tilting just a little bit forward here. The torso's trying to tilt a little bit forward so it's very square to the front of your mat. And then inhale the arms. One breath. Inhale. Exhale. Drop down to Warrior 2. So we're going to start to open just a little bit to the side of the mat. Bring the arms down, Warrior 2. Now, our add-on, Warrior 3. We're going to root down this front leg. The back leg is going to spring up off the ground, and we're going to extend forward with the arms for Warrior 3. It demands the most balance of all the warriors. So you can have the hands down, and then step forward, extend the arms. Make sure that back foot, if you can see it, make sure the toes are trying to point towards the ground and the hip is actually closing. So the headlights of the hips aren't up. They're kind of tilted downward so the hip bones are pointing straight down. Hands are extended forward. We can always have a variation with the hands. If this position is too much, you can pull the hands near the shoulders or the hands near the legs or hips. Samasthiti. Root down, palms forward. Extend the legs, reset. Inhale. Exhale. Left side. Step back with that left foot. Warrior 1. Get the feet right. Don't clench with the toes. Make sure you get a visual with what's happening with your foundation. Feel the sides of the feet, the blade edge and the inside, the arch. This feels good. Inhale the arms straight up. Now even here we might have a girl butt. So the butt might be sticking out too far, causing too much of an arch here. You might feel a little bit of pinching sensation. Try to tuck the butt under just a little bit. It's like a squeezing of the abs together here. Inhale the arms up. One breath. Exhale. Inhale, warrior two. Start rotating the hips open just a little bit counterclockwise. Extend the arms. Kind of make an assessment of what's happening here. Make sure the shoulders aren't trying to creep up. Squeeze the shoulders down. I like what's happening here. All right, we're going to spring into warrior three. Begin by rotating the hips a little bit forward. Hands back. Bend the front leg. Stand into the leg. Warrior three. Any variation with the arms, hardest being arms stretching forward for the full expression, warrior three. Very active with that left leg, pulling the toes towards the shin, like you're standing on the wall behind you. Gaze straight down so the neck isn't craned up. You're gazing straight down, arms forward. One inhale. Exhale, Samasthiti. Bend a lot into that right leg. Feet right beside each other. Inhale. Palms facing forward for receiving. Exhale. All right. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you can take away from just a little bit of cueing, and you'll notice in class exactly what needs to start happening once you understand the basic parameters of alignment. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.